Thank you. We're going to go next to Mr. Tepporn.
Thank you. And if we can pull up my slides, please. Good morning, Chair Allen. Good morning, Vice Chair Ward and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today regarding the harmful impacts of these recent executive orders. My name is Edward Tepporn, and I currently serve as the Executive Director of the Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation, as well as on the Board of Directors of the Western Museums Association. For 42 years, the foundation has been the primary nonprofit partner to California state parks to help preserve the buildings at Angel Island. I am a first-generation immigrant who was born in Thailand in the 70s, grew up in Texas in the 80s, spent a decade in Missouri in the 90s, and moved here to California in 2000. California, a state that's recognized, as noted earlier, as the Golden State by people across the country and around the world because of our values of hope, inclusion, equity, and opportunity. In Texas and Missouri, my family and I definitely experienced our share of racism and xenophobia. Where are you from? Where are you really from? And go back to where you came from were often heard phrases. But while we felt unwelcomed at times, what is different today compared to 50 years ago is that I and many other Asian Americans and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders have never felt more unsafe. Between 2020 and 2023, Stop AAPI Hate documented over 13,000 self-reported incidents of anti-AAPI bias. Earlier this month, the Asian American Foundation released survey findings estimating that 1 in 4 Americans worry that Chinese Americans are a threat. And while California overall remains a relatively inclusive state, there are signs, such as in this report by the Public Policy Institute of California, that the tide is shifting. But racism and xenophobia aren't new. It's the same racism and xenophobia that led to the passage of the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, as well as the construction of the U.S. immigration station at Angel Island. Over 1 million men, women, and children were processed or detained on Angel Island between 1910 to 1940. Wang Gengyo, who you see on the screen, was one of these immigrants. He came to the U.S. with his father in 1919, and the two were separated by the immigration officials. So at the age of 9 years old, he spent 4 weeks in detention on Angel Island before being reunited with his father. While Angel Island is sometimes called the Ellis Island of the West, let's be clear that Angel Island was a detention center, primarily for Asian and Pacific Islander immigrants. And the experience for them was starkly different and more difficult than their European counterparts. They faced more invasive medical exams. They experienced longer periods of detention that could last for weeks, months, all the way up to 2 years or more. And they experienced more physically and emotionally grueling interrogations that could last for days. All in all, people from about 80 different countries from around the entire world were processed or held at Angel Island. And they left behind over 200 poems. These poems are carved into the building's walls, and these poems helped to secure California Historic Landmark status, as well as National Historic Landmark status for the site. Today, the Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation is a small but mighty team of 4.5 staff. Together, we push out exhibits, programs, and social media equivalent to organizations 5 times our size and budget, and reach nearly 500,000 people through our in-person and virtual events and communications. We were thrilled to secure our first ever NEH grant of $25,000 earlier this year, and our first IMLS grant of $70,000 last September. Our NEH grant would have allowed us to partner with Angel Island State Park and the International Coalition of Sites of Conscience to explore how to spark increased dialogue and communication and conversation about immigrants. This is even more important at a time when immigrants are feeling less safe and less welcome in California and across the U.S. Our IMLS grant was intended to help update our outdated permanent exhibits, which were installed over 15 years ago. Our sincere hope is that by doing so, we could educate communities about Angel Island's history of exclusion and thereby inspire a more inclusive future. But on April 2nd, we received an email from NEH informing us that our grant had been abruptly terminated because it no longer aligns with the federal government's priorities. We anticipate receiving a similar email from IMLS, and together this would constitute a loss of about 20% to our annual operating budget. These grants and our work at the Foundation represent just one small part of the beautiful mosaic of efforts by museums, libraries, artists, filmmakers, and other organizations to help lift up the many histories and current day realities of communities throughout the state and across the country. So in closing, I want to express my appreciation again for this opportunity to testify before you. And as the executive director of the Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation, and as an immigrant, I also respectfully ask the Joint Committee, the Assembly Committee, and all the members of the California State Senate and State Assembly to use your voice and your leadership to help counter these executive orders and the devastating impacts that they will have on organizations and communities across California and across the U.S. Thank you for your time and thank you for your partnership.
Thank you. And thank you for your work at that very important places that I've been able to visit before. Fascinating stories, and you guys do such a great job.